Go Big 12 or go home. I'm Brandon Shanahan, joined as always by Iowa broadcasting legend Drew Russell. Drew, I got some news for you. The Super Bowl goes through the Big 12.
It
I don't know what
does.
other way
You're
to put
dang
it.
right.
I mean, back-to-back years, we get two Big 12 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. I mean, it just means more. I don't know how else to put it.
Hey, you've got a all Big 12 quarterback matchup in Mahomes of Texas Tech, Purdy of Iowa State, and you have an all Big 12 matchup in alumni for coaches. That Kyle Shanahan went to Texas, and Andy Reid went to BYU. So there's your fun factoid of the day of that we've got a coaching matchup that's for this year all Big 12. It'll change next year. And then an all Big 12 matchup as well on the quarterback position.
Wow, yeah, I didn't know that. That's some deep analysis.
That's what you get here, Brandon. Don't expect anything less.
So, I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, but I do want to spend a good amount of time talking about Brock Purdy.
Yes.
Because the discourse online, and we've talked about this before, it drives me insane.
Yep.
Because he's a good quarterback, and what I don't understand why people don't see this the last couple of weeks when San Francisco, and it's been this way all season, so it's not just the last couple of weeks, but it's been evident the last couple of weeks. When Brock Purdy doesn't play well, the team doesn't play well. The team's not in good shape. And if he really is a system quarterback, like folks have been telling me, if he really is just a product of being around a bunch of great talents and this amazing system with Kyle Shanahan, whether he's having a good day or a bad day wouldn't matter. If the talent around him was so superb that he's just being carried by these guys, it wouldn't matter if he had a bad day. That's why he got blown out on national television in the regular season. He had a bad day when he was playing against the Packers last weekend before that last drive. He wasn't playing very well. The team wasn't playing very well. Last night in the first half, wasn't playing very well. As soon as he turns it on, this team starts humming. And now, granted, he got a literal lucky bounce out of it. I did see Pat McAfee mention that, like he did that on purpose. That is some precision quarterback play. Quick side note: if he doesn't interfere with Brandon Ayuk, it's a perfectly thrown ball. But it is what it is. And then he was the X factor last night. I'm not saying he was the best player on the field. I mean George Kittle's phenomenal. Christian McCaffrey's phenomenal. They got some real dogs up front. But man, he was the difference in that first and second half. When you see Brock Purdy turn it up, it's a special thing.
I was watching ESPN yesterday. They're talking with Alex Smith, former number one pick of the 49ers, over decade-long NFL career. And he said a great comment. It cracked me up. He said, I am the president of the game managers club of the NFL. Brock Purdy is no game manager. This kid can play. And he meant that in the most complimentary way possible. And you're right. I mean, this team goes with Brock Purdy. He has that locker room completely bought in. And similar to Iowa State, like everybody just loves this guy. Everybody loved him at Iowa State. They love how he handled his business. Same thing it seems like in San Francisco, that he takes care of his business. His entire team is behind him. That offense, I mean, I'm not kidding. That offensive line, his core would do anything for him. They love playing for him. And to have that type of buy-in, and then look, down 17, you're dead right, Brandon. I mean, a lot of situations, that's not exactly an average to below average quarterback is going to come back from that rarely, if ever. And for the second consecutive playoff game, he had some tougher stretches, especially the first half, but he came through. He played a brilliant second half. Great second half. He hit on his targets. His ability to maneuver the pocket, and then his running ability, which seems to all of a sudden become a nationwide deal of Brock Purdy runs. And, I can only laugh as an Iowa State fan that, he had over 1,200, 1,300 rushing yards in his career in Ames. Like, this kid can definitely run. is remarkable. It's a phenomenal story, Brandon. And I'm with you on the national discourse. It clearly generates numbers from a listenership or a viewership standpoint that it's talked about so much because, and we've said this on previous podcasts, people like no one doesn't have a take on this guy. You can't just say, no, he's all right. Yeah, nice story. And he's a good QB, and that's that. It's either this is the greatest story of all time. What a player. This is incredible. Or this guy is absolutely terrible. He's playing on a loaded team. What he's done is incredible. And I'm going to stick with the first point of this story is amazing. It is absolutely incredible what he's been able to accomplish. And now 60 minutes away from potentially being a Super Bowl champion.
It's insane to think about. And we were talking about it last night. I mean, it's not just that. First of all, it's very funny that Brock Purdy is an NFL starting quarterback playing for a Super Bowl, but it's just the way that he willed the team. I mean, that's something special. And I was thinking about it like this: like it's crazy how we hold Mr. Irrelevant to such high standard under a microscope. When guys like Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence, like number 1 overall picks, I mean, it feels like people bend over backwards making excuses for him. And Jared Goff's been great this year, and Trevor Lawrence has been a very good quarterback, but neither of them have been an MVP finalist. And yet Brock Purdy's already checked that box. He's already won several playoff games, and yet he gets put under such a microscope because folks are trying to figure out if he's a good quarterback or not. And a lot of those plays he made last night, I mean, that's so far out of the system. That's just a dude being a football player and making plays, and it's just it's great that it feels like the tide is starting to turn. Like, oh, hey, this guy is actually a good quarterback. And because the Niners have also tried to, they've tried a lot of different options. It's not like he comes in with Kyle Shanahan and then they hit it off right away. They had Jimmy Garoppolo. They gave him $200 million. Let's not forget about that, how much they valued him. They got Sam Darnold in this previous offseason, who was a top 5 pick and perceived to have a lot of talent potential as a starter. And then, of course, the haul they gave up to get up and draft Trey Lance. And they had those 3 guys on the roster at the same time. And we're like, nope, this is our guy. And it didn't seem like there was any real discussions about that. He's been the guy. He's been outstanding. And the buy-in that you like when you hear guys like George Kittle talk about him, like it's such a different thing than any other quarterback.
Well, and you're right. I'll hit the Trey Lance deal quick. That for most franchises, if to give up that draft haul and then pick that player and he makes 4 career starts for your team, no other way to put it. It's a complete miss. And it's a type of miss that can set a franchise back half a decade, or for some franchises even longer. I mean, there are a lot of teams that have been playing franchise QB, spin the bottle, trying to figure it out for the last decade plus. And Brock Purdy's come in and he has stabilized that position the last couple of years, and he has ran it with high quality execution. Has he been perfect? No, of course not. He has definitely had some games that were complete lemons. You mentioned the Baltimore game. He played poorly in Minnesota earlier this year, and yet I watch this guy play. He is always the same demeanor, whether he's playing well or not. And I think his teammates just respect that like crazy. And for the Niners, he's been a phenomenal get. Obviously for him, the Niners were a tremendous situation to go into. They got a lot of talent, but look, you're a good QB if you're getting a team to the Super Bowl. And no matter what, even if the history, he's a good QB, Brandon. I respect his story so much. It's for him, it's a phenomenal accomplishment. Obviously, from the other from the other Big 12 QB standpoint, for a guy like Patrick Mahomes, this guy is, already one of the great players at the quarterback position, probably this league history, just what he's been able to accomplish early in his career. So this is a phenomenal Super Bowl matchup, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right. And it's really crazy to see like the legacy for Patrick Mahomes forming right in front of us. And you think about all he's accomplished. You think about that his rookie year where he came in for an injured quarterback, led his team to the number 1 seed, won a playoff game as a rookie, got to the conference championship game, had his arm fall off with a freak injury where he couldn't throw a pass in the second half. And then he comes right back in the offseason, gets healed up. Second year leads his team back to the number 1 seed. And then, boom, back-to-back playoff wins in very gritty games. And just as a second year, Patrick Mahomes in his first Super Bowl. Oh, wait, no, that's not Patrick Mahomes. That's Brock Purdy.
Yes.
It's a very similar story. I guess Patrick Mahomes didn't have his arm fall off like Brock Purdy did, but very similar arc. And I'm just saying, if Brock Purdy finds a way to unseat Patrick Mahomes, that's the agenda I'll start to push. Is not only have we gotten to the point where Brock Purdy's a good quarterback, but is he the quarterback of our generation? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, Brandon is an Iowa State guy. I'll push that narrative forever for you. I'm happy to carry that water all freaking day. Like, even if it doesn't make sense, even if I can't even back it up half the time. Yeah, Brock Purdy's the quarterback of he's the quarterback of our generation. He's the quarterback of the 20s.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we've already anointed Patrick Mahomes for that, for making the conference championship game in his first year starting, not his rookie year, by the way. He didn't do that like Brock Purdy did in his first year starting, but people give him a pass for riding the bench. It is what it is. Brock Purdy actually good enough to play in the playoffs as a rookie, made the conference championship game, and then right to the Super Bowl at year 2. I mean, that's an insane track, and boy, if he can find a way to win. Holy smokes. We got some agendas to push it. We got a whole offseason for it.
You're going to love this one, Brandon. All right. Tom Brady, all-time great QB. Patrick Mahomes, I believe, 0-3 against Tom Brady. Brock Purdy, 1-0. His very first career start. Took out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I remember that game so vividly because I was like, oh, that's nice. That's cute. Brock Purdy got to win. He got to beat Tom Brady. Holy smokes. How far have we come? What a world.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that shows how quick the NFL is. That was like 14 months ago, 15 months ago, somewhere in there. So we've gone from this kid is literally forgotten about. I knew that he was on the Niners just because, I'm not going to lie to you, Brandon. I was blown away he made a 53-man roster initially.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal.
It is. I was proud of him. I was like, good for you, Brock, man. That's amazing. You get a guaranteed contract for a couple of years. Good for you, man. That's like, I was hyped up for him. I like, if he doesn't even play, I don't care. This is a remarkable accomplishment just to get.
And that was with Jimmy G and Trey Lance.
Right. Yeah. They
like two guys that they were either, had a lot of money invested into, like Jimmy Garoppolo, or Trey Lance, who they just invested all that draft capital into. And then Brock Purdy still is good enough to make the roster. I mean, that's such a big deal.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty impressive. And the fact that the Niners were like, no, we don't. They're going to run with multiple guys as backup at the QB position. That they didn't want to potentially put this guy on waivers and see if another team picked him up. They liked him enough. And to their credit, they knew what they were doing when they decided to keep him kind of on a hunch. But to do that and then, get that start where, when he first started, no one nationally was ripping him. It's like, what a story, Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, this is very cute.
And then within weeks, boy, did that narrative change quick to, okay, well, this guy's good, but like, he's not that good, and all that began. And I'm like, guy's winning. Save the 49ers season. They were kind of in a limbo at the time. They didn't know what was going on. They traded for Christian McCaffrey. They're hoping that kind of sparks something, but they were kind of wandering. Like, they were hoping they could catch a lightning on the bottle, and it turned out it was Purdy. He leads them to 2 playoff victories. Of course, Philly, the arm deal, and that was that. But, to go in 15 months from obscurity nationally, he's known regionally in the state of Iowa, but nationally he's obscure, to this guy has 4 playoff wins, 2 in back-to-back years, going to his first Super Bowl, played outstanding football to get his team to the Super Bowl yesterday. It's nothing short of incredible. I'll happily beat the drum for Brock Purdy. Always, forever. And, most importantly, Brandon, I think 3-1 against Texas. If we're looking at that as well from an Iowa State perspective, got him in 19. Hey, famous field goal. Connor Asali hit the field goal in 19.
Oh.
Beautiful day for that one, Brandon. In 2020, beautiful win in Austin and in front of a half full, stadium down there in Darrell K. And then 2021, just a tear was brought to my eye for sure when they just absolutely waxed them in November. So that's a stat that's important to me, Brandon. And that I just want to throw that out there. Just
Yeah.
think.
Absolutely. I mean, those are important milestones for his arc. They should definitely get a section of the documentary for sure. Is all those Texas games.
Yeah, I think it deserves a documentary. Personally, I mean, but that's just me. I mean, I'm just a one lone bystanding man. I'm not trying to stir anything up, but what he's been able to do has been absolutely special. And again, well, I want to give Patrick Mahomes his proper credit too. I think since he's been doing it a few more years, he's kind of yesterday's news. It feels like at times in terms of his accomplishments, but he's done some nice stuff too, and turned a Chiefs that Chiefs fan base. Well, you're either all in or you're all out on the Chiefs fan base these days, Brandon. There's no question about that. You can't toe a neutral line.
Yeah, it's also crazy to me how Brock Purdy gets tagged as assistant quarterback when Patrick Mahomes won 0 playoff games without Andy Reid. Just want to throw that out there.
That's big if true, and that's true. I can't deny that one. Some would say, I mean, he came into a good situation. Both these QBs came into good situations too. I want to make that clear. It's not like the Chiefs were
that's true.
bad when Mahomes took over. I mean, the 2017 Chiefs were good. They went 11-5 that year, 12-4.
Yeah.
Alex Smith was a very good QB that season. Lost in the divisional, but a good team. I mean, competitive. So he walked into a tremendous situation that really helped him out. And same with Purdy. I mean, I think Purdy did walk into a very good situation in San Francisco where you can make an argument the best running back in the league in Christian McCaffrey, top 3. No one's going to debate that. Deebo Samuel in his prime as a top, 3-5 receiver in the NFL. I mean, this guy is absolutely nuts what he's able to do. George Kittle's a top 5 tight end probably the last 2 years. I don't think anybody's going to debate that in the NFL. He walked into a good situation too. And I think that stuff matters when you do look at QB trains of, some of these QBs. I think QBs are more close than you realize. Situations do matter, but you have to take advantage of the situation too. Mahomes clearly did, and Brock Purdy is taking advantage right now.
Yeah, and we talk about how crazy this discourse is, and that's part of it too, is that this 49ers team is significantly better with Brock Purdy than it ever was with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Agreed.
Just like this Chiefs team is so much better with Patrick Mahomes than they were with Alex Smith. And I mean, how much better is a different story. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a different animal. But I mean, I'm so excited for the possibility of the narrative that we either have this dynasty being stamped in history with 3 wins for Patrick Mahomes under 28, or Brock Purdy, Super Bowl champion. And comparing him to Patrick Mahomes is a bit of a stretch, an agenda I'll happily push. But that is, who's to say that they can't win 2 or 3 under Brock Purdy's rookie contract and keep flooding this talent in? That was a conversation with Patrick Mahomes when he came in and made a Super Bowl in his 3rd year in the NFL, 2nd starting. Again, people forget that he was benched as a rookie. He played in week 17 and then benched for the playoffs. Picked Alex Smith over him, so it is what it is. People forget that. I like to mention that. So it's just interesting to see how that'll play out.
Look, this Super Bowl is going to be, I think, a phenomenal one. I've seen some discourse of, people were upset that the Detroit Lions didn't make it. Understandably so. What a season for the Lions. They were great. They had, David Montgomery is the GOAT, Iowa State legendary running back. Malcolm Rodriguez, fantastic linebacker out of Oklahoma State. What a story. Rodrigo, as they called him in Hard Knocks. What a story he is. Great player for Detroit. And they're a team that's going to be, really good going forward. And Baltimore would have been a fun team too. Zero question there. They were, I think, the best team in the NFL for the majority of the season. And they didn't play their best football on Sunday. And the Chiefs, to their credit, played great defense and found a way to get out of there with a win. But this is a great Super Bowl matchup. And, talking about toxic discourse on TV, podcasts, radio, whatever, you just feel like, isn't this not like a top, 5 Super Bowl in history where I feel like the discourse is going to get toxic and toxic fast before the game? Like, it just has, you're looking at dynasties in play. You're looking at a rookie, at a second-year quarterback that nobody has a even-keeled take. They're either all in or all out on this guy. You're looking at legacy plays. You've got celebrity gossip with Swift. You have 2 pretty nasty defenses. You got a San Francisco defensive end that we're not going to dig into politics on there. I mean, there's just like some wild, I feel like the discourse is going to be pretty bananas for the next couple of weeks. And I'm personally, of course, looking forward to it because there are some sick minds out there, Brandon. I cannot wait to see what they come up with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it because I'm absolutely going to be a part of it, and primarily, preaching the Brock Purdy equal or greater than sign Patrick Mahomes. So I'm excited to push that narrative while I can. I could be proven very wrong here in a couple of Sundays, but for now, who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'm right. Don't let me be right, Drew. Don't let me.
I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, do not let Brandon Shanahan get hot, because once he gets hot, this man don't miss. He's like the great Omar Little off of The Wire. If you come at the king, you best not miss. That's Brandon Shanahan, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't wait. And speaking of the game, and not Big 12 related, but it's just out of curiosity, what do you think of the job that Dan Campbell did yesterday?
So Dan Campbell, Brandon Shanahan, Texas A&M man, so former Big 12. We'll throw that.
There we go. There's the.
I've got to connect.
We're in the clear.
He's getting a lot of hate. If you watched any Lions games this season, that's how he coaches. He is going to go for those 4th downs if they're within 5 yards, like every time. And you know what? That first one, there were 2 that were key. One, they were up 14, Brandon, middle of the 3rd. And I thought they were going to kick it. I would have kicked it admittingly. I'm taking 3. Let's go back up 3 possessions. Defense is playing well. They haven't given up a touchdown in near 2 quarters. But he didn't. Pass was dropped a little behind, but catchable ball. They didn't go, and San Francisco scored. And then, of course, the famed one where they kick a field goal, they tie it, and they have a chance to at least tie the game at the end of the game. I'm going to focus more on a bad Jahmyr Gibbs fumble. That one I thought was pretty costly, Brandon. One where they're kind of on the ropes. They're up 7. Bad fumble leads to a touchdown. And they had multiple drop passes as well that they could not get the job done. And as great as Brock Purdy was, I thought the Detroit defensive line, which has been great all year, really good. They lost containment at times, and Purdy made them pay every single time. And so Dan Campbell deserves his hate. Did he potentially coach them out of a Super Bowl? Yeah. I'm not going to fight that. I mean, that timeout, you run it on 3rd and goal with a minute left, and you don't get it, and you have to burn a timeout, which, if they don't get the onside, not a big deal. 3 runs, they call 3 timeouts. You have a chance. 40 seconds, you have a chance to go down and try to tie it. That was idiotic. I can't believe, their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, calls that. I can't believe that's signed off. But Campbell deserves some criticism, zero question. But I'm also not going to overlook some key plays that maybe those don't become as big of a factor if you don't see a fumble, if you don't have some drop passes, you keep containment as well.
Yeah, and I like the way you put it. There's levels to it. Like that first fourth down that he missed, well, which kind of felt like was the first domino to fall. That's one that I think he's got such a pass for. A couple of things. One, that's how they played all year. You know, you have confidence in your guys to go get it. They drew up a good play, it just didn't work out. And then, like you said, it doesn't. You don't make that call if you know that they're going to go right down and score. That they're going to have that freak play where it gets batted off of the defensive back's face and then ends up being a touchdown, and then you don't anticipate Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling the first opportunity he gets. You don't make that call if you know that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is what it is. But that last fourth down with the opportunity to tie it up, that to me, it feels like that was such a good opportunity to stop the bleeding. Where it's like, man, the points are what they are, but just to get something going, to put some type of pressure back on the 49ers to come back and answer, I think that was worth more than the opportunity to go down and try to regain the lead. And then that last couple of plays was inexcusable.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff where the folks defending him are all about, player morale. That he believes in his team to go out and get these few yards, and that's great. But now when you have a kerfuffle like that, where first of all you run the football on third down,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know why you do that. That doesn't seem like a great idea. Maybe on first down where you have more time to adjust. If you think that we're that strong up front and they don't have Randy Gregory and Chase Young and Joey Bosa on the other side, or Nick Bosa, excuse me. We can punch it in real quick, maybe, I guess. But then you do it on third down, you waste that timeout because then it's all coming down on the onside kick. There's no backup option unless Christian McCaffrey fumbles the football, which is an insane thing to bet on in this circumstance.
Yep.
So then you do that, and then it worked out because they got it. But going forward on fourth down was an insane thing to do. The field goal is a much safer play. Go kick the field goal. You still have to get the onside kick.
Yep.
And boy, it worked out that they got it. But
and
if you don't get
not
that fourth down, then the onside kick doesn't even matter.
And you're not in a position like that if you kick a field goal previous possession to tie the game. Then it's a tie game, and then you have a different narrative of, does Brock Purdy go down and lead his team to a Super Bowl? And that would have been obviously maybe the ultimate discussion, but we didn't, need to get to that situation. So Dan Campbell, I think definitely, there's no doubt, deserves some criticism, Brandon, because it was a winnable game. And I respected his post-game message with the press that he said he believes his team can be back. No question. They're good. They've got a great culture in place. Fully agree. But man, that's a good chance. The Super Bowl opportunities just don't show up every day. And probably the city of Detroit knows that more than anyone. They haven't played an NFC Championship game in over 30 years. So to blow a 17-point lead is pretty painful. And they had a winnable situation. Now they're going to have to go pay Jared Goff a lot of money, which he definitely should be their QB. I really like Jared Goff. I'm happy he's found a good home in Detroit, but they had him low-key at a discount. The Rams thought they paid too much and traded him, and a trade worked out for the Rams. They won a Super Bowl with Stafford, but man, he was only making about $24-25 million a year, which that's a decent bargain right now in the NFL for a QB that's not bad and has experience, a guy who's played in the Super Bowl. So NFL is a crazy world, Brandon. There is no doubt about that.
It is. And speaking of crazy worlds, how fun is Big 12 basketball right now?
Yeah. 30 minutes, we were going to get around to it, folks. How good is this league? How fun is this league?
So the new rankings came out today. The Big 12 has as many teams as the ACC, Big 10, and Big East combined.
Yeah.
That's insane.
8 teams. You have 2 top. In fact, I'm pretty blown away. That top 10 each had 2 from every top conference. Big 12, SEC, ACC, Pac-12, Big 10. All had 2 each. But then the Big 12 after that had 6 more from 11 to 25. And I mean, this league is just bananas, Brandon. I mean, you have an Oklahoma team that's good. They had a bad week, but they're still pretty good. Texas Tech is great. I mean, for them to be at the top of the league right now, they are continuing to find wins. Great week for Iowa State last week, where they were able to get 2 home wins, which we're going to talk about a little after the game chaos with K-State in a little bit. Baylor's been great, even though they had a vicious, what a triple overtime game they had on Saturday against TCU. That was the game of the weekend. I mean, that game was outstanding entertainment. This is a great league. TCU's back in the top 25. They're tough. I mean, this conference, I think Brandon could have 10 NCAA teams, 10 to 11. We'll find out. But it's a good, I mean, it's just, they're tough. It's physical. There's no easy nights.
Yeah, and it's, oh man, it's so fun. It's such a blast because it's not just like they're really good teams. Because there have been other conferences in the past that have had a bunch of, really good teams. The ACC with Duke, North Carolina for all those years. But just the way that every single game is not just a very good basketball game and not just very competitive, but also equally hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
Like like I told you, I was down with the flu last week, but like hopping on Twitter and seeing the discourse after that Iowa State Kansas State game, I mean, you don't get that anywhere else. Like, what an insane finish to a game.
Yeah, no, I mean that one, that's, I mean, you have that's absolutely off the rails. There are 14 teams in this conference, Brandon. All of them have played approximately 7 games, give or take, on a couple schools. Only 3 schools out of 14 have 2 losses or less through 7 games. That's how ridiculously competitive it's been. Texas Tech's been an unbelievable story. They're the top of the conference right now. Houston's a national title contender. Them and Iowa State are tied for second. Bill Self's been coaching at KU since 2003. KU's not even a bad start. I mean, 4-3 is a fine start for near any program. For KU under Bill Self, that's their worst start through 7 games in the Big 12 is 4-3. So that tells you just ridiculous chaos. I mean, there's only 2 teams in the conference with 5 losses or more through 7 games in West Virginia and Oklahoma State. And they've played each other. So, I mean, we could sit here every week and talk about how competitive this is, but when you just dig into the numbers, I mean, it's almost mind-numbing how just insane this league is. I mean, it really is. I mean, I've got BYU kids. They wear horns down on T-shirts, front row of the Marriott Center on Saturday. They're getting kicked out, Brandon, or not kicked out, but told to remove the shirt, which is absolutely banana land. I'll rip that for days. What an effort. And then, as you mentioned, the Iowa State, Kansas State videotape deal, what a bunch of hooey that is.
Yeah, oh man, how fun. When I saw the clip of the first of all, the 82-year-old man just getting after it, getting animated. And then the Jim Carrey looking fella coming in, seeing a grown man do this. I mean, that's
great.
Oh man, it just means more, huh?
In the Big 12, I compare it low key to it's turning into toxic levels of SEC football fandom a little bit with Big 12 basketball. And it's great. I think it's wonderful. People can rip the SEC football fan bases for how toxic they get. And they do go over the line. I don't necessarily condone that. But I think it's great. People are mad at grown people for acting like kids or a little immature at games. Look, you're saying bad stuff that is crossing lines. That's one thing. When you're just, doing this or doing that's just funny,
It's
come
so
on
funny.
now. Yeah, that's just
so fun.
That's high entertainment. And that was, the atmosphere was great for K-State. Kansas was loud too, but coaches and, for Coach Tang, I mean, pretty wild deal because there was a noticeable conversation post game with him and TJ Otzelberger, Iowa State coach. And it was a good 30 seconds. The cameras were just showing them talking back and forth. And then, people are like, well, what are they talking about? And then a report released Friday night from a Kansas newspaper that said, well, they're accusing Iowa State of videotaping, and you got the AD coming out saying that's not true. TJ, after a win over Kansas Saturday, he makes a long statement saying how ludicrous that is. Not to quote the old school NBA for many years, but this league, man, it is something right now.
And my favorite is whenever something crazy happens in the NBA, it's like 0 days since the NBA has been unnecessarily dramatic. The Big 12 is getting right there. The Big 12 is right there.
It is. I mean, it's like something every night. It feels like every Saturday, something happens that you just kind of like you either roll your eyeballs a little bit, or it kind of like makes you say, "Whoa, that actually happened." And it's great. I mean, we've talked about how the Big 12 is really putting a lot of emphasis on basketball. Football's the number one revenue driver, but they're putting emphasis on basketball, trying to make it the premier conference in the US and trying to market it like that. And it's working. I mean, it really is. Their games are great. And even though they're great atmospheres all around the country, it's highly watchable product right now. It's hilarious. And the 4 new schools, we've talked about it, but they've been great. I love all their fan bases just from an enthusiasm level.
Lots of great engagement with those folks. The Big 12 being known for, a basketball conference, we're known for our great pick'em. I can't share the spreadsheet like usual. Shout out Spectrum. I haven't had internet in a week, so it is what it is. Really a gritty setup here, but just a quick update. You got one game up on me. Let's see. We both hit on Kansas, both missed on Oklahoma over Texas. Both hit on the University of Central Florida. I had Oklahoma State taking down TCU. You got that one right. The Horned Frogs able to pull it off. You also picked the upset BYU over Houston. That didn't quite fall your way. So I got that one back. We both had Iowa State over Kansas State. I mean, either of us could have predicted how hilarious that ended up being. We both had Houston over Kansas State. I also wouldn't have pegged Houston to run away with that game in the fashion that they did. That was impressive. That's not an easy win. Then you picked up another game, Iowa State over Kansas. I had the Jayhawks going in. And I like what you said about, this being such a bad year or this being the slowest start. Nobody's panicking over in Lawrence either. Like,
no.
Very understandable, like the way that they've lost games. And I mean, even when they're in this dogfight with Kansas, there's that clip of Bill Self enjoying the police officer doing the wiggle. So there's no panic in Lawrence, despite this being such a out of characterly bad start for them. But you picked up a game there. We both were on about BYU over Texas. And then you got another game up on me. Texas Tech pulled out against Oklahoma. First place Texas Tech. Who would have thought? We're talking about the most elite conference in basketball, and Texas Tech's in first place. What a world. I got one back. Oklahoma State picked up a win over West Virginia. And then we both whiffed on Baylor over TCU, and both whiffed on Cincinnati over UCF. So,
but and I'll tell you what, we'll talk about Texas Tech right now, because it is a tremendous story. 16-3, first year head coach in Grant McClaslin. I mean, he's been great. They've got good talent. I mean, they had a pretty much brand new roster for many guys, Brandon, and they're getting great production just right now with what they've been able to get. I mean, they play about, not 8-9 guys. They've got 4 different players averaging over 10 a game, almost 5. They've been great. I mean, they've been a lot of fun. I loved watching, Pop Isaacs play. That's their leading scorer. That kid he can light it up. I mean, and he knows how to manage the floor extremely well. Also, so, give them a ton of credit. Are they going to win this conference? The jury's still out because it's a long freaking season. But, I think the key for every one of these teams, if they're looking to, I think top 4 finish is the big deal in the Big 12, because the way the conference tournament is set up this year is it's a 5-day event. And if you're a top 4 seed, you get a double bye automatically into Thursday. If you're 5 through 10, you get, 1 day bye. So those wins matter. But it's a big weeks. TCU, great bounce back. Victory Saturday over Baylor. Shout out to Jameer Nelson Jr., son of NBA guard Jameer Nelson of the Magic and a couple other teams throughout the years. Kid's a lot of fun to watch. So Big 12's got a ton of talent. That's really nothing new, but what a conference.
What a conference, Drew Russell. That's all I had for the evening. My phone's about to overheat and melt again. Shout out Spectrum for absolutely nothing. What a disaster.
This isn't a plug for Spectrum. Definitely not. It's just we're just gonna have our comments about them.
I was thinking about that viral tweet I had a couple weeks ago where and sometimes you'll see folks like reply to their own tweet, like plug in something. Yeah. And I was like, boy, if that happened today, I would just slander Spectrum. I would use this opportunity, my 15 minutes of fame, to be like, I hate these fucking guys. I hate this. Yeah. But so
I think that's a pretty worthy cause. You'd get support. Like people, I think so too. If there's one thing that people, that's like a top 5 people just automatically rip, is cable providers and internet service providers. Like they're just such an easy target. Like no one. Yeah, I don't know.
And in Spectrum's defense, I've never had a pleasant experience with any ISP I've ever had. Every single time I've moved, there's been an issue getting it set up, which feels bananas. Well, when I tell people, because I've moved a lot, and it's unanimous every single time there's an issue, and they're all bad. All the customer service is horrible. It's all awful. But yeah, Spectrum is kicked it up a notch.
And one thing off about those communication places as well, they're so tough to cancel. Like if you're switching, it can be it's a hassle that like you have to go through these long phone conversations or you have to physically go in, have a pretty long conversation. They're trying to give you all these just beyond gunky, like, oh, well, we'll give you this, or well, we can cut maybe $10 off this bill and not charge this for the month or 3 months. And like, I'm just one out. Just let me go. Like, if those, like, certain things, they really, like, if you're trying to cancel Sirius satellite radio, that's a good example. You have to call in, and it's a pain.
Right.
It's a pain, Brandon, because it can be a long conversation. Like, I just am done. Well, we can offer this. I'm just done. We can offer this. Same with like newspapers. They don't just allow you to cancel online. You have to physically call in on certain companies for newspapers. And like, if I'm a consumer and I know I have to go through that in the future, I don't want to buy it because I don't like that process. Like, why would I want to deal with that?
Well, gyms are the same way. I had, for an extra 2 years, I had a McCreary Community Center, showing up on my bill every month. I tried emailing, tried calling. No, you got to come down. Like, brother, I don't live in Perry, Iowa anymore. That's 1,000 miles away. And, Perry's kind of out of the way. So even when I'm up in Des Moines or Ames, that's still out. I'm not going 45 minutes out of the way to go to the McCreary Community Center to cancel. I had to get Wells Fargo involved. I'm like, stop giving them my money, please. And that was the only way I could get it taken care of.
They got a good pool, though.
I mean, it's a fantastic facility, and I wish they had done all the renovations when I got the membership, but 2 months later I moved. I'm like, nice.
Tough world, Brandon. But I those things are hassles. I don't know what else to say. So, but Spectrum, they'll get it together. I'll say it right now. They'll get it together. We can get our bracket back up next week.
Absolutely. We'll see. They said it'd be out at another 7 to 10 days, so we'll see. March maybe. Maybe we'll
get it by March. We better have it by March because we've got a full bracket we're going to have to go through. Which, we're only. In fact, Brandon, thanks to one of the all-time great Twitter X follows, the great John Rothstein of college basketball. 48 days away till we have a bracket for all the under 7 weeks. Under 7 weeks is where we're at right now.
Spectrum, you got 47 days to figure it out.
47 days, ladies and gentlemen. It really is, that simple. But, Look, going forward, though, I mean, there's some great games coming up this week. Huge one on Saturday, Brandon, between Kansas and Houston, the two presumptive favorites going into the season in the Big 12. That's going to be a major one. In Lawrence, that's going to be a phenomenal basketball game. Texas TCU is going to be great. Baylor, Iowa State's a top 25 matchup, and that's going to be extremely good, or even top 20. There's some good hoops once again this week in the conference, and that's going to be a blast. And football wise, Brandon, we haven't talked outside of NFL with Big 12 players, but conference schedule is coming out this week, or might have already come out by the time you're listening to this. We'll obviously dive deep into that in next week, but I mean, that'll be very interesting to see how the Big 12 kind of puts together their schedule for the 2024 year.
Yeah, enjoy Farmageddon while you can. I mean, we saw how good that was on the basketball court. You got to enjoy it while you can.
Man, Bill Self, he put it perfectly, Brandon, that he was talking about that, the home and home is missed in the Big 12. And I know it's not really possible. It's going to be next to impossible, especially when you get to 16. But the home and home was a lot of fun. And, as an Iowa State guy myself, I'm disappointed. I'm ecstatic they won Saturday, and I'm ecstatic Iowa State potentially has bragging rights, I guess, for a year hoops-wise that we won. But, yeah, I mean, I feel Kansas deserves a shot to defend their home floor and us come to it and see if we can find a way to get a win or if they defend it. And that stinks, and same with football. Gosh, we got to save Farmageddon. I don't know what we got to do. I don't know. The two ADs don't seem too receptive right now, which is a big problem. They both just like to block people on Twitter, which is a huge problem. So I don't know how we're going to get to them, Brandon. Maybe got to write some snail mail. Maybe I'll write some postcards to Jamie Pollard and find a way to work my way in, see if we can save Farmageddon for 2027. We do have time.
We got time. Got plenty of time to lobby and campaign. I feel like Brett Yormark's got to be the. I don't think Jamie Pollard's going to be the savior of this.
What would it take? What would Jamie Yormark have to read to make him say, you know what, that guy's got a point? Because I don't know, for these, because more than likely that's a 99.999% chance that's getting just thrown away. Doesn't even see his eyes. Even if it does, still another 99.99% chance there's no chance he's going to implement it. And I don't know what the right reasoning is, to say that make him, you can have the average of, hey, this over 100 years going. These two teams, very similar fan bases, geographical territory. Clearly some great games. The snow game last year was a very memorable game. They've played neutral site in Kansas City at Arrowhead for many years, and they got pretty good crowds, even when Iowa State was not good at all, and K-State wasn't great. They still got good crowds in Kansas City. I don't know what's going to take for Yormark to say, you know what, they've got a point.
It probably does have to be something along the lines of Arrowhead Stadium or something getting involved and hey, we want to host this game specifically in 2027. Because there's the argument that all the tradition and everything. I got a feeling that doesn't hit Brett Yormark as much as it probably would have hit previous regimes or other commissioners. And that's one of the things that we love about him, is that he's so innovative, he's so forward thinking, he's so. But I don't think he'd listen to the whole tradition spiel. It would have to be something that would move the needle for the league in such a drastic way that maybe Taylor Swift loves Farmageddon so much that she's like, I will perform at halftime if we keep this game going. She's going to be the mayor of Kansas City by then, so maybe she can orchestrate something like that.
Could you imagine big donors from Iowa State and Kansas State putting up money to see if they could fund a Taylor Swift show as halftime entertainment for Iowa State, K-State, and Kansas City? Because I feel if you get a sold out crowd, you'd have probably more Swifties there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it'd be insane.
But just imagine they'd get a sold out crowd. They'd get a good hey, don't show your typical halftime show. Just pretend it's the Super Bowl. Just bring her out, let her do a 10, 15-minute routine, pay her a couple million, and call it a day.
It would be very funny if Farmageddon got her before the Super Bowl.
I think it'd be great. That content would be
it's great for everyone. It's great for everyone. Who
Who
says no?
Hey, and I just want to see, that's what I'm saying. I just want her to wear, like a dress that has like the Pioneer Seed logo on it. Let's make sure like all the seed companies are like getting their respect. It's Farmageddon. Let's get John Deere logos, Case, New Holland. Let's throw them all on there. Let's make sure they're getting properly repped, Brandon.
I mean, if you need something that moves the needle, Taylor Swift coming out on a John Deere tractor. There's nothing that would be more iconic than that.
I personally would be thoroughly entertained. I would say for that $2 million fee, that's just money well spent. And if the donors have to pony up to $3 or $4 million, I would say that's still money well spent. John Deere, I'm sure, would be happy to chip in $500,000 to see Taylor Swift ride a John Deere tractor. Probably $1 million or $2 million. Like that'd be just great publicity.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole world would. The very rare opportunities where you get the whole world to start to talk about you. That's one of those opportunities. 2027, we're calling it.
2027. I mean, we'll definitely be there live if that was actually happening. Like, there's no question. We'd go live on location if we had to do that. Arrowhead, I think I would love to see that series go back to Kansas City for a couple of years just to mix it up. I love on-campus games, but for 2027, I think it would make sense if they went neutral. But it's what makes college football good. But we'll find out. But that schedule will be very interesting to see kind of how that breaks down. I've already seen a couple leaks. I don't know if it's anything real. We'll wait for the official one, but it's going to be highly entertaining, Brandon.